Hello all, welcome to day 3, Unit 1. We're going to cover topics 1.4 and 2.1 today, the basics of democracy and kind of the origins of American government. When we're in class, actually on your in-class day, we will look at, have you go over some of the documents that really had a major impact on the U.S., both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. So we're going to get moving here. Generally, I have you do this in class. I don't know if we're going to have time or not. But what I want you to do is just quickly look through that list and kind of rank them, 1 being the most important, 5 being the least important. Which one of these is most critical to a democracy? What do you need more than anything else? And what could you say, okay, well, it's important, but it's not as important on down the line, to 5 being you don't need it as much for a democracy. So take a quick look at that. You can pause if you want. Just jot down what you think is the most important, I guess, and maybe the least important. Couple learning targets. Just want you, hopefully you can define democracy by the time we're done. And then that the U.S. Constitution establishes majority rule while protecting minority rights. And again, that's something I'm going to have you do. And then free enterprise is a key element of democracy, that capitalism really is the only economic system that works with democracy. A couple basics of democracy here. Winston Churchill famously said, "No one pretends that democracy is perfect or all wise. Indeed, it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except all those other forms that have been tried from time to time." That in reality, it's the best because we don't have anything better at this point. But Churchill was a firm believer that there might be something better. We just don't know what it is quite yet. And Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes kind of encompasses what democracy and freedom and liberty and the ability to act on your own interests is really all about. That the right to swing my fist ends where the other man's nose begins. I can do whatever I want until I impact someone else. When I harm or hurt someone else, that's kind of the end. You can't do that. Then you're infringing upon their rights. So you can do whatever you want until you infringe on someone else's rights. And that's where democracy is kind of an important tenet. I also picked him because that mustache is pretty sweet. But that is, again, he was a justice on the Supreme Court. And again, a pretty good quote summarizing what a democracy really is. So the five major tenets here, recognition of the worth of all citizens, that everybody can impact the system, can help the system, makes the system thrive, is really the important part there. Respect for the equality of all citizens. Now, we haven't obviously always had that, but again, it is an important one. Majority rule and minority rights means that just because the majority wins an election, that those are the ones in charge, they cannot then infringe upon the rights of those that did not agree with them. So the majority rule is important, and that's the basics of democracy, that those who voted, those who won, then take their office, then take the seat. But you still have to respect the rights of those who did not vote for you. And that's a fundamental aspect and a really important aspect of it. And the acceptance of compromise for community good. That this whole idea, this social contract that we talked about in the last lecture, and that's so important from Rousseau and Locke and Hobbes and everybody that talks about it, is that you have to give up so much for the benefit of everyone else. And that is a very important, because again, compromise is kind of the bedrock and the center stone for how democracy works. Insistence on the widest possible degree of individual rights of all citizens. Do what you want to do. Do what you want to do to the highest degree possible without infringing on others. So again, 5 important aspects. And then free enterprise is kind of something that's been added to that based on the economic systems. But the humanity, and a good quote here from Julian Bond, who passed away a few years ago, but the humanity of all Americans is diminished when any group is denied rights granted to others. That you can't grant some people rights and then not give those same rights to another group or another set of people. You have to have everyone with the same rights, or all of our humanity is going to be diminished. And that's an important quote as well. Constitutional democracy, we say Republican. It is a Republican system by its very nature. A democratic government is based on the popular sovereignty. Remember, popular sovereignty is the ability to make your own decisions for where you are, in which structures, powers, and limits of government are set forth in a constitution. So there are rules. It is there. It is out. Everyone knows that it's out there. Majority rule, minority rights, what we just talked about, the concept that the largest group will be right more often than it's wrong, and that no matter what happens, the rights of minorities must be protected. We do use the term republic as in a Republican, as in a republic system, not as the system in which political parties are noted. Somebody famously at the end of the Constitutional Convention asked Dr. Benjamin Franklin, what is it? Is it a democracy or a monarchy? And he famously replied, it's a republic if you can keep it. That it's going to be difficult, but it is a republic. Democracy is built on compromise. It is certainly a blending of views. All democratic systems is set up this way, or are set up this way, I should say. So again, it is built on compromise, and that's certainly a very important aspect of it. Why free enterprise? Why do we throw this in here? Well, one, private ownership. Goods are produced by individuals, or by companies, I guess, but by people, not the government. By the citizens, not your government. Obviously, the opposite of this is a command economy where the government controls production and the means of production and how much is being produced and what's being produced. Individual initiative should be rewarded, and that's how free enterprise works, that this motivation drives the market, that citizens, not the government, determine what and how much will be produced. You might remember in your history courses, but it's very common, obviously, you had the command economy and you had these backyard furnaces made to produce steel in China. You had a lot of these collectives made to produce a number of things. Well, one, it oftentimes resulted in very cheap steel, and other times poor quality. Not only was it inexpensive, but it was very poor quality because you had individuals doing this at the behest of government instructing them to do these sorts of things. Free enterprise is also based on the profit. Profits are held by the individual for the benefit of that individual, not for the benefit of the government, not for the betterment or benefit of everyone. It's for the person that came up with it. It rewards innovation. Competition. That supply and demand should rule the market. As Adam Smith said, government should stay out of all of this, according to Smith. A lot of Keynes doesn't necessarily agree with that, but competition in the marketplace should drive these prices. Supply and demand should be setting the prices for goods, not the government. Government setting these prices usually either overinflates the value or underinflates, or I guess undervalues what things are worth. So you don't want competition to be driven by the government. It should be based on supply and demand of the products. So government's role, Government's role in democracy and free enterprise is, one, to protect the public. So you do have some government involvement on some level. Antitrust laws, you have those. Pure food laws, you have the USDA that jumps in there. And if you've ever read The Jungle, you know what used to happen in the meatpacking plants in the meatpacking industry, and you've read some of those disgusting tales. Drug regulations, you see it now with vaccines. You see it on a number of things, that there are regulations, there are rules. There's a way of going about putting things on the market for the protection of the public, and that's what government is meant to do. That they establish these antitrust laws. You can't have monopolies. Pure food laws, that we're getting the product that we're paying for, that we're getting clean items and clean food. And then drug regulations. Again, it's been tested. It has gone through the process, and it is safe for human consumption, and it will treat what it says it's going to treat. Preserve private enterprise. How do they do this? Well, they public works and subsidies. If you were to buy an ear of corn without subsidies to going to our farmers, that ear of corn would be a lot more than the 10 cents you're probably paying, or 15 cents maybe, if you get some really good corn or expensive corn. But generally, these subsidies help protect the farmers. They keep them in business. It keeps our food prices at a reasonable rate. If we were paying the farmers what the market value is for this, we'd be paying a lot more money. Government helps with that. It also helps the farmers when there's an oversupply and they still are getting these subsidies to create, and they're getting some money. Public works, not a whole lot of money in trash collections and those sorts of things. So the public works are handled usually by the community or local governments. It does preserve private enterprise because those are not generally money-making ventures. Think about this, James Bryce quote: "No government demands so much from the citizens as democracy, but none gives back so much." So it does require your participation. It does require your involvement, but it gives back so much. It gives back so much to its citizens. Origins of American political ideals, and I'm just going to cover this briefly because, again, I'm going to have you do a chart in class with each of these 6 documents that we're going to look at. But it was a government of, by, and for the people. 2 important concepts that brought to America by the English colonists. One was limited government, a basic principle of American government which states that government is restricted in what it may do. And each individual has rights that the government cannot take away, and those rights must be respected. This idea was because the opposite of this is unlimited government, meaning government has total control. You don't want that. That's totalitarianism. Limited government is that the government is restricted. There are rules. There are regulations and things that they have to abide by in order for them to function. And they also have to establish and recognize and respect the rights of the individuals, and they can't take those away. They also brought with them the idea of representative government, system of government in which public policies are made by officials selected by the voters and held accountable in periodic elections. We have this. We do this. If you don't like how things are going, go vote. Vote the opposite. You really like it? You think the candidates or the elected officials are doing a good job? Go vote. Vote for them and make sure they keep their job. Your participation is really important. Participation in government is very important for these very reasons. So they are checked and they're held accountable in periodic elections. Terms vary, obviously, with office. House of Reps is 2 years, Senate 6 years. But these officials are selected by us, by voters, and held accountable in these, again, periodic elections. Compare all of this to an unlimited government. There are no rules, limits. There's no imposition at all on the ruler's authority. The leaders don't have to follow the same laws. There's no what we call rule of law, where everyone, the established laws are there, and we all abide by them. We're also subject to those laws. Not an unlimited government, not in totalitarian regimes. It's not something that's there. I'm going to, again, I'm going to have you do in groups of maybe a handful, we'll see. But there's 6 documents. It's in your packet that you'll see. They're going to have you each go through and have one person discuss and show us what you come up with and let us know so we can get that down in our chart. But you'll be divided up into groups for that. If you have any questions, let me know. Happy to help. Happy to answer any questions. Stop by the room. Shoot me an email. All right. Hope you got something out of it. See ya.